Carl Zachman's interest in the Industrial Revolution began at an early age when he became fascinated by the working of steam engines and stayed with him through his academic career. But it wasn't until he decided to pursue his interest in art that it all came together.
I was a kid that was always interested in history museums, model railroads and trains, threshing shows. I actually ended up getting my steam license and I volunteer at different shows as I'm able and my schedule allows. The thing I love about stuff from the Industrial Revolution in general is that all of the moving parts are exposed. You can see how they work. It's a different world and a different time. Artwork I do is kind of a melding of all of my interests and passions for engineering, history, and art. My pieces, I guess, come to fruition in a couple different ways. Sometimes I start with a sketch or an idea in my head and I work towards the end goal with something specifically in mind. Other times I will just cut out gears of different patterns and colors and sizes, and I start just rearranging things until I find something I like. It's more organic. Once that's done, I work out the technical details about, levels and planes and what spins where and how things move and what direction things are going to spin. And then I start working on the panels, what colors and textures, size, direction, things like that. I was always doing art. Growing up in a family with an artist, I was always drawing, I was always playing, I was always sculpting. When I was younger, my father had a ceramic studio, so I got to play with the clay and mold it and watch the firing process and all that kind of stuff. I was interested in sculpture and ceramics. I did some photography and things like that, but nothing was ever really set in stone as to what medium I would take. Just talking to my dad, we were thinking about directions that I was going to try the art thing, but I really hadn't, didn't have a solid concept. And we were talking about some of the steam shows and things like that and what my interests were. And my dad just, one of those comments, the little comments that's just off the cuff, says, you can make art out of gears. And I just that's it. I grabbed it. That's mine. I know exactly what I'm going to do. At arts festivals, I jokingly call my artwork engineer porn. In some of my artwork, I use gear patterns that have almost become extinct. Gears that are spiraled and nautilus-shaped, squares, ovals, triangles, all these odd-shaped gears and mechanical motions. Those are the ones that really, really excite me and that I love to enjoy because they move so interestingly. All of the gears I make myself. They are based off of historic patterns. First, the curved spokes, I actually spent about a month of evenings going through archival sources, trying to find out the proportions and why they were shaped the way they were and how they were shaped, just so that when I recreated them, I would get the proper look. And I realized that there's also proper directions to run them, that the ones with the single curve, you want the forces to go down the curve so it brings it all to the metal. If you run them backwards, the forces will be more likely to shave off the spokes and break them. I may make something that's 4 spokes into 6 spokes or alter things here and there, but the general look, the feel, I work very hard to keep it as vintage looking as possible. Art is something that, to me, evokes thought and emotion and feeling. And, that can be the gamut from shock to disgust to affection to love. I try to invoke, in a way, a sense of wonder and a sense of nostalgia. With a degree in anthropology and archaeology, it's not just about the artifacts. As an anthropologist, I like the people watching. I get to interact with people. I get to watch them look at my work and see their reactions. I get to watch people smile and you know, kids point and ask questions and get excited, and it's a wonderful thing. I've been doing this now for 4 to 5 years, and it's been slowly evolving and changing, and I'm not sure where it's going to go, but it can be a slow process. Some pieces go a lot faster than others, but it's something that I do enjoy. You know, it is frustrating at times. You know, a car mechanic will scratch his head bald in a spot at a time staring at your car, but it's one of those things that when you're all done, there's that sense of satisfaction that you've created something that didn't exist before, and that you brought something from your mind into the world for people to enjoy.
Prairie Mosaic is funded by the Minnesota Arts and Cultural Heritage Fund with money from the vote of the people of Minnesota on November 4th, 2008, the North Dakota Council on the Arts, and by the members of Prairie Public.